Hey, my name's Kyle Daniels, I'm the head of marketing at Assimilate, and we've been working with the guys at IBM to bring you some amazing content on data governance and AI. We hope you enjoy it. Thanks for joining us. So today I really want to talk about future-proofing businesses with AI-driven data governance. And I suppose the best starting place is that AI is such this massive buzzword for good and bad reasons. What are some of the challenges you guys are seeing, especially when we're trying to link it towards data governance? I don't know who wants to start, maybe Brendan.
Significantly, I think, rubbish in, rubbish out is something you hear a lot. It's probably put in different ways, but essentially, really for AI to function, with accuracy, effectively meet business needs, data is key. And on the other side, you have organisations that have generated at great expense vast amounts of data across their enterprise, some of which is accessible, some of which isn't. But in many cases, they don't. They struggle to understand where that data is, what the quality of that data is. They're challenged in providing that data to the AI that they're developing in a meaningful way. So
our client engineering team has worked on thousands of AI use cases, and you can imagine that they spread all across different industries, lots and lots of different. The one common factor we get told from that team is, after the first bit of discussion, where's my data? Is my data any good? So it all comes back to the data. It really does. Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned about the sectors. So coming to you quickly, Karl, what role do you think that AI is going to play against, I suppose, the quality of the data is going to play across those different sectors?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So one of the sectors we work in, we've got some great experience around, is healthcare, and adapting any of our processes and our businesses, using and future-proofing all of our processes around the data and AI. A really great place for it is healthcare, because our lives depend on it. So what a great place to start. And typically healthcare and pharmaceuticals, if you think about it, it's real brass tacks. You've got so many data points in patient care, pharmaceutical testing. We've got data coming out everywhere. It's so important to get that data accurate and get it back timely and make decisions, the right decisions on that data. What we're seeing is probably two things with data and the use of AI within those industries. Quite a simple one is something where people are just taking data quality with some quite simple AI models, and they're doing things like addressing their data inaccuracies, typos, any anomalies, outliers, things like that. They're taking them, addressing them with really simple AI models, and they're suddenly getting a lot of value back in to their decision-making process. And remember, these are GPs, these are patients, these are people who are really going to benefit from the decisions they can make with that data. So if our simple AI models can detect and address those anomalies in the data, missing data, typos, etc., instantly there's a value there in a real sort of valuable core proposition in healthcare. I think probably looking a bit more complex from there, you've got things where we can enhance our data sets. So taking that data set, making sure it's accurate, and we've got it back in the right hands at the right time, really speedily. AI can be used for that really simply. More complex, we can use models to go out and reach out into different data sets, bring data together. They can even create and generate more data given that information it's got to hand. That would typically be done by data analysts and GPs. Data analysts and GPs cost a lot of money, and they take a lot of time to get in the right room and get all that data brought together. So if we can use these AI technologies and tools to future-proof our business, we can get that speed, we can get that accuracy, decision-making, then it's absolutely amazing to move these industries forward, these sectors, and absolutely invaluable, I would say, for bringing that in.
So I'm just thinking, if let's say I'm one of these leaders in healthcare and I'm thinking about AI and how I'm going to implement this into my workflow, what should I be thinking about as that leader when I'm bringing this in, when I'm considering adopting, say, like the data governance strategies and leveraging that AI technologies? I suppose it's open for anyone, really.
In terms of the first thing is understanding the data,
Yeah.
where it is, what it is, how it relates to other data sets. And that's fundamental to a data fabric. And as you say, Karl, the great thing about AI is historically we've had problems with the, if you like, consumability of a data fabric. It's a big thing to build. It's expensive because it needs a lot of input from data specialists, whether they're data scientists or data engineers, data analysts, people who understand the data. And as you say, they're expensive people. They're expensive people, and there's a lot of effort involved. If we can use AI to improve their productivity, so absolutely not replace them, but to make that faster, then we can get a better understanding of our data, and that better understanding of the data can then provide the basis for doing AI outside the data governance space in a much more productive and trustworthy way.
I think also I'm seeing another aspect that starts to morph into, which is, I see lots of occasions where people are retrieving data and you would ask them why, and they say, well, because we might need it sometime. And that's more frequently than you'd think, and I think really a growing maturity about the questions we ask about data and understanding those and how that leads into achieving the outcome. So I think an outcome-based approach to what data we're looking for and the questions we're asking about data is really critical. The other thing I'm seeing is the volume of data required to drive transformation, whether it be for AI or anything, is really growing. The amount of data is really growing, and really AI has a massive role to play in automating that supply chain or pipeline of data from its raw form into consumable data. And really what's critical about that is, we used to call them data stewards that would manage all of that. Those departments aren't being invested. They're not getting bigger, but the volume of data and the demand is getting bigger. So unless we use AI to automate and manage data, in terms of that flow, but also raise the exceptions so humans are still in the loop and they're making decisions about how data is, classified or enhanced, etc., it is really critical. And for us in IBM, that's a key part of the process is starting with raw data, which I don't believe starts in databases. It starts with enterprise applications, IoT, all of those things, different formats, different scale, and make them consumable so that they can be correlated and used in different use cases. I know it's close to your heart.
Definitely. I think the only thing I'd add to that, I think we see in the mid-market quite a lot where organisations are looking at embarking upon data governance frameworks, data governance programs, AI programs. And I think the first thing that a business would consider, for me, in their organisations, the first thing they consider is the time and cost.
Yeah.
And the second question that comes really quickly after it is, where's my time to value? So we're going to do something. We can see all this. We want to get involved. There's lots of choices around this. We know we're going to have to invest time, effort and money. So when's my payback? Because if you can imagine the CEO, we've had a tough time. We've had COVID. We've had all these pressures, double dip recessions. We've had all this. The first questions coming back in the big enterprises and the small. First question is time, effort and money. And what's going to be our payback on it? When we put our data governance framework and we look at our AI programs, introducing AI within the organisation, how we control it, manage it, and we get benefit, these are the first questions that we should be doing. I know IBM, I know ourselves, when we engage around these programs, one of the first things that we need to do is the how, the why, the where, right? But predominantly, why are we doing this? And to Brendan's point, why? What's the expected outcome? And what's that going to mean to us in our business? So what's our business objective? What did we want to do? We want to improve something. We wanted to gain something. Great, we can do that. Let's monetize it. Tell us when we're going to do it and how. So people can get behind it, adopt it, and have a great culture, business culture about adopting it. And it's not why are we doing this? Why are we doing it? What we're going to get from it. Everyone's got behind the arrow. They're saying, yes, we're able to do it. We're all behind it. We can put our time, effort, money. We know there's going to be something at the end of it. And it's aligned with our business goals and objectives. And we get that output.
And indeed, that's it's very much in line with the way we implement data strategies with customers, which is, it's not about 3.5-year project. We were discussing this earlier, that may deliver one outcome at the end of it. It's about actually the outcome. What is the business thing you're trying to achieve? What bits of data you need? How do we move that data and make it consumable? Taking that project and then scaling it on the basis, because I think a lot of relationships we have are not built on 3-year projects with vast expenditure. They're built on trust. Did you deliver that outcome? Do I trust you to do the next 2 based on that? And gradually what you're doing in an agile way is building the platform. You're not trying to encompass all of your data and solve all the problems day one. You're delivering outcomes and scaling.
That's absolutely critical. I've been doing data for 25 years plus, and the big problem with data governance has always been the boiling the ocean. How long is it going to take me to fix all of my data, get all of my data quality issues sorted, get all of my data catalogued and everything before I then start delivering value? And that's never worked. Build it and they will come. Nobody's got the time or the money to be able to do that. So the focus now is very much, you've got driven by AI, we need to do AI. So you think of an AI project that you want to work on and a particular use case. Well, let's concentrate on getting the data right for that. And if you do that using a set of tools and a set of methodologies that are scalable, then incrementally you just build out your data governance solution opportunity by opportunity within the organisation from there, rather than the old massive project way of handling things.
And I think what AI has done, interesting enough, that we haven't been able to do, because I think if everyone implicitly understood the value of data governance or data quality, certainly Gemma and I would probably be somewhere else on a beach, retired by now, and probably you too, right? Really, I think organisations have struggled to tell a story about the value of doing data governance, and by that story I mean a story that's contextual to business, that a CFO can understand, why am I investing this? What AI has done for us is, it's fairly obvious that AI sits at the end of a business outcome and is critical to business outcomes. So it kind of starts to force that story to come out. What I think really organisations and indeed vendors, but also people in organisations need to get better at is, what is the story about, that I need to tell my business about the outcome that justifies why I need to put these tools in place. And so I think AI has genuinely, not just because of the pressure in the market for everyone to do AI, but in terms of the outcomes they're looking at trying to achieve, really has a linear connection back to the data, and also why I need that tooling in place to support what I'm trying to achieve.
And even if you're doing, I shouldn't use the phrase basic reporting, but just sort of MIS type of stuff.
Yeah.
You think, how many organisations have we all worked with where fundamentally you run a report and actually what happens is you then download that report into a CSV file, put it into Excel, and then fiddle the numbers, to get the graphics that you want out of Excel. Completely unaudited, no control over that whatsoever. Now, if you put in front of that Excel bit, if you like, a natural language interface where you type in what you want, if you do that in the right way, all of that is then captured. So you may still be running off a spreadsheet-ish, but effectively you're capturing all of that background, that audit trail as to what's happened with the data. So AI, just the process of using AI, even though the capability that you're using is natural language, you're in a much more structured environment, which you can then capture, and that helps your data governance process.
One of my biggest frustrations, funny you say that, is when you talk about people building dashboards. My question is always, so you get a piece of really relevant insight, what are you going to do about it? Very rarely are dashboards actionable. And so, it's a bit like, well, I've flagged this up, it probably means I need to do something, but there's nothing within the context of that dashboard that's actionable. I think what AI and some of the more advanced dashboarding and MIS systems are now doing is, I can see that trend. How can I action a workflow? How can I perhaps action further information so I can drill into it using natural language and interrogate the system? How can I look at the provenance of the data just to make sure that this is not an anomaly? How can I make sure that the information I get is valid because it's arriving in the right order and I've got full observability of all of the pipelines so I know that this is true and it's a real piece of data? I think really trying to shift, beyond AI, trying to shift our mode of operating within our teams around just having information is not enough. We need to have the tools to action it.
Yeah. We see that a lot, and it's a really good point. I think one of the byproducts, like a really soft but amazingly valuable soft part of that, or byproduct of it, is that teams work better, the culture within the business is better, because we're no longer pointing fingers one way or another saying, you're the backlog, you're the problem, because you're absolutely right. They want to look at a piece of data and ultimately ask questions, because that's given them something. My next question is, can I have it by month, by week, by site, by geography, by customer, by a different product? And then it's someone else's problem because they've only just received that. If they had that self-service capability where they're not relying on teams, not getting upset with inaccuracies or the time delay, the time lag of other teams, being dependent on that backlog to get me this, because I just want to do my job. I want to get the answers. I want to make my department really sing and succeed. And the only way I can do that is having that ability to do our natural language searches, get our answers back, and then ask another search because of that. What about this and something else? And we can really improve our business by having those tools available to us and break down some of the problems between departments. Reuse people where they're going to be much better. Get our people who do the backlog creating reports actually going and working with the data, improving the data accuracy, and we can spend all of our time doing what we're really good at, asking questions and improving our business.
So an interesting movement, and I'd be interested in both of your opinion on this, is I'm seeing, and certainly with a very large customer recently, is moving the onus on data, instead of it being on the consumer to go search it, to being on the producer presenting it as a product. And I think really, if you think about, we talk about data quality and provenance, one of the best provenances, or whatever the term is, that you can have is that a department stands behind it, says what it can be used for, says how often it's going to be refreshed, whether it's the finance department of this month's figures that are immutable, they're there. You can now use them within your analytics tooling is really important. Certainly it's something that we're addressing in IBM.
Yeah. We're a month away from Data Product Hub coming live, and it's all about that data, dealing with data as a product, with a particular set of SLAs around it, and I think that the where we are now in terms of data governance, and the AI tooling that has helped us get to that place, we're at a point where organisations can genuinely produce these data products for the rest of the organisation to consume, and that it doesn't become, as you say, like it's always somebody else's problem. This is what I need, IT, go fix it. So I think we're moving into a much more. We've been in a self-serve. Sort of a self-serve Wild West, I would say.
Go on your own adventure almost, isn't it?
Yeah, and until recently. And I think we're now moving into a much more controlled environment where self-serve is going to be productive.
What our customers love when using the IBM products and the tools, the AI tools, is when they're using their reporting suites, analytics and dashboards, is the lovely recommended for you with the AI tools in the back going, I know who you are, what you want next. And that is wonderful. When you talk to an MD, a client, and they're going, look, we've got all these data, how do we navigate the seas of all this stuff? And typically they can't, and they waste a lot of time doing it, a lot of misspent resources within the business to do it, and frustration. something coming back like, this tool knows me better than I do, and it knows my next step is a sales report, then it's the margin report, and it's an age debtors report, then it's something else. I'm going, wow, this is amazing. And I'm doing my job and getting answers and actually moving the business on. Yeah. Because of that AI sitting in the background just going, I know we can do this, and bring it back. So the tools in place are absolutely fantastic.
And I think surrounding that, and for me the most important thing is surrounding that with tools that mean that not only am I seeing this information, but I can trust it. And I can trust it because I understand its provenance. I understand where it's come from. I understand that it's quality. And in addition, because it's a product, I understand it came from the finance department who stand behind those figures, starts to make, because I think there's a, back to your spreadsheet analogy, certainly I've been in organisations where, your spreadsheet is malleable to the point it depends on what you want to present to your management, right? You can, without doing too much, you can make things appear. But I think, what's really important is to understand how you came by figures, not just what are the figures, how you came by the information you've got, and be able to trust it, because I think then organisations don't have to spend those loops going back and checking, or this was wrong, and they make wrong decisions based on wrong information, which happens a lot. I think we start to build that trust aspect, we become more agile and more effective.
I was going to say, I'm going to jump in because I know that there's going to be people watching this that are probably at the start of the journeys and probably thinking about how they're going to integrate it, whether they want to look at data governance. And I think sometimes, unless it gives you money or gets you out of jail, you don't really want to look at these things. So we did mention briefly before about volumes of data. Is there a certain customer that just isn't going to benefit from this, that just aren't producing enough data? Some of your really small companies, is this big companies only? Is this, you have to be a certain size, you have to be doing a certain amount of stuff to really get the benefits from it? Or can everybody take part in this?
Maybe I can take a punt at answering that. I think for us, what we're seeing is there could be small but complex organisations who are handling a huge amount of data, and the data that they've got, they deal with it quite in a sophisticated way, and sophisticated manner, as opposed to what we're looking at maybe in a big company, maybe some of the large supermarkets, online operators, etc. You go, they must have lots of data. But we're still going to benefit it at the small level, the SME level. We've got the problems where we haven't got the people to be able to manage manually the data that we've got, all of the hidden gems within our data, all the hidden problems within our data are there and moving quite quickly, too quickly.
Even if you're a shop running on a spreadsheet, yeah.
Naming no names.
Then there's still value on the AI side in terms of the, as you say, have you thought about, what are the reasons why, this product isn't selling or whatever it is? There's help down at that level. In terms of data governance, you've got one person running a shop, they understand all of the data. That's fine. But it's not data volume, I don't think, is the big, it's the complexity of the data. And once you get beyond that being within the business owner, then you need some form of data governance to ensure that people, even if it's just two people, that they're talking about the same thing.
And I think there's another aspect to this. Small SME companies work in ecosystems, and I think we need to think of data in terms of networks, because essentially, if they're a shop, they're part of a supply chain. If they're another business, they're, to provide whatever they provide to a customer, they invariably work with a number of different organisations who are exchanging data, and they can't enforce the data format on the organisations they're working with, or the identifiers of those data, what constitutes a record of a different type. So actually that still starts to become to your point, a complexity. It might not be a volume problem, but it's a complexity problem, because the shop still needs to provide a description to the customer in some way, especially if they're an online shop. That comes from a manufacturer's description of a product, how they then add their marketing in, and all of those sorts of factors. The product ID, is the product ID the same as the ID they have? So I think, you know, it's about the complexity, but it's also going back to what you said earlier. It's not about this big bang thing. It's about appropriateness. You know, the tooling has value. AI can help with that. But what's the appropriate level that simplifies this complexity, but at the same time appropriately provides the business value, so the organisation can grow and compete in what is a very difficult marketplace.
The smallest organisation I know where it's applicable to, and it is absolutely applicable to, we see evidence of a data governance framework within there. It's my local rugby club. I'm vice chair of their little junior club, and what we have, which is the complexity, is personal information around the children, around information about the children, parents' addresses, everything else. Yeah. So we have to, as a committee, we have to have a data security, data storage, we have to have a retention policy. All of these are key pillars of a data governance framework. Yeah. It's absolutely applicable. How sophisticated is that?
And it's funny, and at every match, I'll just come off a rugby tour with my son, you know, if any injury has to be documented. Yeah. The parents have to be notified, so there's a chain of approval that has to be fed in. So, you know, this is, our world is inevitably becoming more and more data centric, you know, in areas that it never touched before. So, you know, that complexity is true.
I know we've talked about future proofing, but I really want to bring in looking at the future. So I want to start by looking at some of those AI trends that are going to be coming in the next few years that I suppose people now maybe are just hearing about or maybe haven't just yet, that you guys think are going to make kind of big waves. So anything that kind of springs to mind?
So we've talked about generative AI. Essentially, I think there are three major trends in models that we're seeing. We started off with GPT, you know, big model, does everything, data from everywhere. You know, in some cases, people would believe fairly spurious data, privacy issues, all sorts of things like that. Certainly, we're seeing a move to a multi-model world, so that there be multiple models. And in that, smaller models. So smaller models that are actually trained on smaller amounts of accurate data. So it's certainly what we've done with our Granite models. We've removed the privacy issues. In fact, 3/4 of the data we've trained it on, we've actually filtered out. So it's now more targeted and more effective. And we're seeing other vendors start to do this as well. So having smaller models that are you can be sure of the data within them, and therefore they can be properly indemnified. But then that moves to, when we move them into an organisation, how can they train those models to work in their domain, which is critical because everyone's business domain is different. So that's where we get back to the governance thing. We're seeing a lot more effort through the governance side of providing quality data to train those models to be domain specific. So those are two data areas, certainly in trends we're seeing. I don't know whether you want to add to that.
And those focused AI models are adding into the capabilities of the data governance products as well. So back to what we were talking about using AI to help with the load of identifying data, classifying data, resolving quality issues, and potentially creating, because when you're building models on top of that data, for those models not to be biased, you have to have balanced data. So so that means that you may, you know, to make sure that you're balanced across all communities, for example, you may want to have to create data. So we'll see synthetic data, I think, become more important to balance out models, to ensure that the models perform equally for all.
So other areas are saying multimodal. So, you know, we've seen text now creating video, and that's starting to mature. I think another trend that's really starting to become powerful, and it's something we've done for a while, is really the use of natural language agents. Certainly if you're a NatWest customer, you're using one of our cognitive agents, and they're becoming more and more enriched with generative AI. We use them in an NHS trust to handle HR, for example. If you're a nurse, certainly if I'm a patient of an NHS trust, I'd like my nurse not to be worried about the form they ask or the pay they've got, and at midnight the HR department aren't there, but be able to get the answers so they can concentrate on my problem. And it might sound selfish, but the point is that, and I'm sure that they feel happier and more engaged as a result of it. So I'm seeing the growth of agents, not just to answer questions in customer care or internal customer care, as I like to talk it, but I'm seeing people start to develop and use tools to develop agents to help them get their job done. To speed up a task or to really, enable that. And certainly within our consulting division, they're starting it to build personas that start to answer questions, to help them shape ideas and shape conclusions and things like that. So that's really that for me is also an advanced technology we're seeing in this year. I'm not talking about 3 years' time because it's difficult to predict that.
Definitely. I think from my point of view, not necessarily for the future, but what is really exciting that we're seeing in the marketplace for us is just the breadth and depth of new innovative ways of using generative AI. And I know it's now and we're using it and everybody knows, anybody's got a LinkedIn account, watching the TV, we know about deep fakes and everything else. But the extent, the breadth and depth that people are using generative AI in business to move their business on is incredibly interesting for us. And this is the now, and to even think about how that move into the future is scary to think about as all these possibilities. Just what we can do with generative AI, what our customers are doing, linking our data sets, improving our data quality, moving our business objectives on just by harnessing the power of generative AI within their business is incredible. To see that, for me, is the future, that this is blossoming.
Yes.
It really is.
Yeah.
And final question, it'll be a quick one because we are short on time. Which of those are you most excited about? Everyone's got to answer this one. No getting out of it.
I think the really small, focused models, because although we haven't really talked about it, when we talk about small, that means that they're much more sustainable, cheaper to run, because they use less resources. I think that the potential of generative AI in terms of using bigger and ever bigger models, I don't see that as a sustainable future. So the sustainable future I see as being small models.
So, I agree, and I'd like to take that further. We've seen Apple now develop models that actually, and model architectures that run on devices, which really put it in the hands of, not just people who want to ask questions into their mobile phones, but engineers who are on site that need to clarify information from vast amounts of manual data to have or be able to deliver priorities to them, what they should tackle first given a certain set of scenarios, so that they don't have to be the 30-year served experts to be able to solve some quite sophisticated problems. That we can deliver that benefit to where it needs to run in a hybrid sense, not just serve it up on the cloud and hope people will come to it, but actually deliver it to where they're operating and really adding value. So for me, the movement to smaller, hybrid, multimodal models that allow us to tackle more advanced problems, like the things we're doing with NASA, for example, in burn scars and looking at the whole planet and the way it works, within our environmental suite, start to become really very powerful when they're realised in the hands of individuals who are just trying to manifest them.
You've got to pick something else, Karl. You can't go.
No
small, no sustainable.
It was mentioned earlier, and it was a really good point, and it's been around for a long time. And I quite like AI bots. I think what they can do for businesses in the SME world, they've been around for long enough. They're already doing really great things in the banking, the service industry. They're really moving that on in terms of the individual's resources. Their cost model is really getting impacted and benefited through having these bots picking up the manual effort, the real sweet and easy things, the FAQs you don't really need human intervention for. And I think that's quite exciting, used in the right way with the right transparency is a really interesting, really cool thing to move on, because we can start adding value in the cool stuff.
And quick time to value as well. We've seen customers get to something that's a solution within, a matter of a month or two, which is really good.
Great place to start.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time today, guys. And we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.